There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Tariq Voss, and I once believed in the Emperor's light reaching even the deepest corners of humanity. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The acrid taste of recycled air burns my lungs as I crouch in the corroded maintenance shaft, watching the enforcers drag another corpse from the toxic sludge pools. This is the 1,000th body this cycle alone, another forgotten soul of the Underhive. Nobody counts them anymore. The constant drip of chemical condensation forms a rhythm against my worn enforcer's carapace, each droplet leaving another stain on armor that once gleamed with the pride of Imperial authority. 20 years I've patrolled these lower levels of Hive Tarsus on scintilla, watching the slow death of billions the Imperium pretends don't exist. The smell never leaves you, a mixture of human waste, toxic runoff, and the unmistakable sweet rot of corpse starch processing plants. I've breathed it so long I no longer notice, just as the pale, malnourished inhabitants no longer notice the crushing weight of the hive kilometers above their heads. My augmetic eye whirs softly as it adjusts to the perpetual twilight, the red targeting reticle automatically marking potential threats, a habit from when I still believed threats could be eliminated. The truth of the Underhive cannot be solved with a bolt round. The real horror isn't the gangs, the mutants, or even the occasional heretic cult. It's the system itself. Billions of souls trapped in a living hell, working and dying to support the privileged few who will never know they exist. The Imperium's greatest sin isn't the enemies it fights. It's the citizens it abandons. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Kalen Voss, and I once believed in the Emperor's light. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The metallic taste of recycled air fills my lungs as I crouch in the darkness of Hive Tethys's lowest levels. The constant drip of toxic condensation marks time like a broken chronometer. 43 years I've survived in this Underhive, watching the slow death of hope in the eyes of those forgotten by the Imperium above. I remember my first descent into these depths. I was an administratum scribe, tasked with conducting a population census for tithe calculations. My superiors warned me not to venture below habitation level 50. Nothing of value exists below, they said. The arrogance of ignorance. What I discovered beneath the magnificent spires and manufactorum levels was a nightmare the upper hivers pretend doesn't exist. Millions of souls trapped in a perpetual hell of their own making. Yet one designed by those who rule from above. The Underhive stench clings to everything. A mixture of human waste, toxic runoff, and the unmistakable copper-sweet smell of blood. It permeates clothing, skin, and eventually your very thoughts. My once pristine robes now hang in tatters, stained with the filth of survival. The data slate I once carried to record the Emperor's citizens now serves as a makeshift weapon, its broken edge sharp enough to open a throat when necessary. And it has been necessary more times than I care to remember. The Imperium speaks of duty, sacrifice, and the glory of mankind's dominion over the stars. But here, in the forgotten depths where the light of the Emperor has never reached, I've learned the truth of our civilization. We are built upon the suffering of billions, their lives crushed beneath the weight of those above, both literally and figuratively. This is my testimony, my confession, my warning. The Underhives of the Imperium's great cities conceal horrors that would shake the faith of even the most devout. I know, for I have become one with them. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Garvel Locke, and I once believed in the Emperor's light reaching every corner of his domain. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The taste of recycled moisture on my lips carries the metallic tang of toxins, a flavor I've known for 43 years in this lightless realm beneath Hive Tarsus. The Underhive is not merely a place, it is a sentence, a living tomb where the Imperium buries its unwanted while they still breathe. I remember the first time I saw a child born without eyes, skin pallid as corpse flesh, tiny fingers webbed together like some Xenos mockery of humanity. The mother wept not from sorrow, but from relief. For in the Underhive, deformity often means survival. The pure humans are harvested first when the press gangs come. The mutants they leave behind, too tainted for even the desperate Imperial Guard to claim. That child lives still, 30 years later, navigating the toxic darkness with senses the upper hive would call abomination. We call it adaptation. The weight of the hive presses down upon us. Billions of souls stacked in a monument to mankind's stubborn refusal to perish. The spires reach toward the stars while we sink deeper into the rot. The Administratum census records list this sector as uninhabited industrial substrate, a fiction that erases 15 million souls from the Emperor's ledger. We are the forgotten, the statistical error, the rounding down of humanity to make the numbers more pleasing to distant lords who have never breathed air that burns their lungs. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Garrick Voss, and I once believed in the Emperor's light. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The Underhive consumes all hope, all faith, all humanity. It devours souls more efficiently than any demon of the warp. I know this because I have watched it happen day after day for decades. The taste of recycled moisture on my tongue carries the metallic tang of chemical runoff. The air burns my lungs with each breath, thick with toxins and waste. This is what it means to be forgotten by the Imperium. I was born in the shadow of Manufactorum spires on Necromunda, in the sprawling hive city of Primus, not in the upper levels where nobles bask in artificial sunlight, nor in the worker habitats where the masses labor in regimented squalor. No, I was born beneath it all, in the darkness where the Imperium's gaze never reaches, where humans become something less than human, something feral and desperate. The Underhive, where millions live and die without ever being counted in the Administratum's endless ledgers. I have seen children fight to the death over a single protein cube. I have watched entire sections collapse, burying thousands alive while the upper hives continued their commerce without pause. I have witnessed the slow transformation of Imperial citizens into mutants as toxins and radiation work their insidious changes over generations. The Underhive is the Imperium's darkest secret, not because it hides from the light, but because the light chooses to ignore it. The Emperor's mercy does not extend this far down. Here there is only the law of survival, and it is merciless. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Thaddeus Gorm, and I once believed in the Emperor's light reaching even the darkest corners of humanity. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The taste of recycled moisture, tainted with chemical runoff and human desperation, still haunts my memories. Even now, as I record these thoughts into my Voxcaster, the distant echoes of the Underhive's suffering follow me like vengeful spirits. I remember the first time I descended below the Manufactorum levels of Hive Tarsus on Scintilla. The transition was jarring. From the regulated atmospherics and artificial daylight cycles to the perpetual twilight of failed lumens and toxic mist. The weight of kilometers of rockcrete and plasteel pressed down, not just physically, but spiritually, as though the very structure of the hive was designed to crush the souls of those condemned to dwell beneath. The ecclesiarchy teaches that the emperor watches over all his subjects equally, that his divine light penetrates even the deepest shadows. But I have walked where that light has not shone for centuries, where generations have lived and died without ever seeing the sky, where the very concept of the emperor is nothing but a distant myth used by gang lords to control their territories. The Underhive is not merely a physical location. It is a state of abandonment, a testament to the Imperium's willingness to forget its own. What I witnessed in those forgotten depths changed me irrevocably. The philosophical foundations of Imperial truth crumbled beneath the weight of what humanity becomes when left to fester in darkness for millennia. The Underhive is not an aberration. It is the inevitable conclusion of the Imperium's rigid, hierarchical structure, a system that requires forgotten masses at its foundation. And I have returned to tell their story. Though my superiors in the Adeptus Administratum would prefer these truths remain buried beneath kilometers of Hive City. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Garva Locke, and I once believed in the Emperor's light reaching every corner of his domain. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The taste of recycled air, thick with the residue of chemical runoff and human waste, has been my constant companion for decades. Down here, in the bowels of Hive Tarsus, we are the forgotten ones, the discarded humanity that powers the Imperium from below. The Underhive took my right eye during a territory dispute with the Ashbourne gang when I was just 14. The wound festered for weeks until a rogue Medicae, himself hiding from deaths above, cauterized it with a heated pipe and whatever narcotics he could spare. The pain taught me what the ecclesiarchy never could. There is no divine plan for those beneath the manufactorum levels. The Emperor's gaze does not penetrate the kilometers of rockcrete and plasteel that separate us from the spires. I remember watching the distant lights of the middle hives through ventilation shafts as a child, wondering what crime my ancestors had committed to condemn generations to this lightless existence. My father laughed when I asked, his voice hollow as the abandoned hab chambers we scavenged. "No crime, boy." He wheezed through lungs blackened by toxic fumes. Just the misfortune of being born unnecessary to those above. That night, I carved my first shiv from the femur of a corpse we found in the sump waters. By morning, I had made my first kill, a rival scavenger eyeing our territory. I was 9 years old, forgotten by the Emperor's light, religious desperation in the darkness. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Sergeant Tiberius Volin, and I once believed in the Emperor's divine protection. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The void between stars is where faith goes to die. I know this because I have floated there, encased in ceramite, watching my life support readings slowly diminish while the Vox channel filled with the death screams of my battle brothers. The silence that followed was worse than any heretic's blade. My chapter, the Iron Sentinels, had served with unwavering loyalty for millennia. We purged the Xenos from Hive Tertius on Mordian Prime. We held the line at the siege of Cadia's southern reaches until our bones broke beneath our armor. We believed, Emperor, forgive us, that our faith would shield us. But faith is the first casualty when the darkness truly descends. It began during the cleansing of Nexus Secundus, 943 M41. Our strike cruiser, the Unyielding Oath, responded to a distress signal from an Adeptus Mechanicus research outpost. Standard protocol: secure the facility, recover any tech relics, eliminate resistance. We had performed such operations countless times. As our drop pods pierced the atmosphere, I led the litany of battle. "The Emperor protects," we intoned. 20 battle brothers, voices united, souls aflame with righteous purpose. Brother Cassius gripped his bolt pistol so tightly I could hear the servos in his gauntlet straining. He had experienced premonitions, visions of blood and betrayal, but our chaplain dismissed them as warp echoes, nothing more. How wrong we were. When we breached the facility's outer walls, we found no signs of combat, no bloodshed, no bodies, only silence and darkness. The machine spirit of my helmet detected trace amounts of incense in the recycled air, not the sacred oils of the Mechanicus, but something older, forbidden. Brother Demetrian was the first to falter in his devotion. In the main research chamber, we discovered a shrine, not to the Omnissiah or the God Emperor, but something ancient, Xenos runes carved into human bones. Demetrian fell to his knees, his bolter clattering to the floor. "I cannot feel him," he whispered, his voice breaking. "The Emperor, his light doesn't reach here." Our chaplain, Mordecai, struck Demetrian across his faceplate with his Crozius. "Stand, brother. Faith is our shield against such blasphemy." But I felt it too, that hollow emptiness where the Emperor's presence should have been, a void that hungered. We were not alone in that facility. Something moved in the shadows between the cogitators and data stacks. Not human, not Xenos. Something that had once been both and was now neither. Faith, they say, can move mountains. But what happens when faith encounters something older than mountains? Something that remembers when the stars were young and the Emperor was merely a man. In the darkness of that facility, I learned that devotion is not a shield. It is a beacon that draws predators. And some predators feed not on flesh, but on the very essence of belief. The Emperor's light had never reached this place. And soon, we would understand why some corners of the galaxy are best left in darkness. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Darius Kell, and I once believed in the Emperor's light reaching even the darkest corners of his domain. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The taste of recycled air, thick with the acrid tang of chemical pollutants and human suffering, has been my constant companion for decades. It fills my lungs with each labored breath, a reminder of my place in the vast, uncaring machinery of the Imperium. I still remember the day I descended below the mid-hive sectors of Hive Tarsus on Scintilla. As an administratum scribe tasked with census duties, I believed I was merely documenting population statistics for the glory of the God Emperor. The weight of my data slate felt reassuring in my hands, its machine spirit humming with purpose as I recorded names and occupations. The lower I descended, the more the walls seemed to close in, dripping with condensation that left rust-colored stains on everything it touched. The stench of unwashed bodies and industrial waste grew, stronger, clinging to my robes and skin like a disease. The Underhive swallowed me whole. What was meant to be a 3-day assignment has become my eternal prison. 43 years I've dwelled in this lightless realm, watching as generations are born, suffer, and die in the shadows cast by the privileged upper hives. The Imperium speaks of duty and sacrifice, but down here those words are as hollow as the promises of salvation. In the underhives of the Imperium's countless worlds, billions exist in a hell that the upper echelons pretend not to see, a necessary foundation of suffering upon which their comfort is built. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Lucius Draver, and I once believed in the Emperor's light reaching even the deepest shadows. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The taste of recycled air, metallic, stale, laced with the chemical tang of centuries of industrial runoff, has been my companion for decades now. The constant drip of condensation from corroded pipes forms the heartbeat of my existence, each droplet marking another moment in this living tomb beneath the magnificent spires that pierce the heavens above. I remember sunlight. Or at least I believe I do. Perhaps it is merely a memory fabricated from propaganda-picked reels shown to us as children. Images of the upper hive nobility basking in filtered rays through armored dome glass. Down here, in the underhive of Tarsus Ultra, light is a currency more precious than clean water. The flickering lumens cast shadows that move like predators across crumbling ferrocrete walls. Walls that weep with the toxic condensation of 10,000 years of human suffering. The administratum records will never acknowledge my existence, nor the millions like me, born into darkness, living in squalor, dying unmourned beneath the weight of humanity's greatest achievements. The hive cities, those magnificent monuments to mankind's dominion over hostile worlds, are not merely structures of adamantium and stone. They are living organisms, with the privileged few feeding upon the misery of the many. The Underhive is not merely the foundation of these colossal structures. It is the festering wound in the Imperium side that no one dares to treat. I am recording this testimony on a data slate I salvaged from the corpse of an administratum scribe who wandered too far from the mid-hive checkpoints. The battery indicator blinks warning, red like the eyes of the mutants that prowl the abandoned sections of level -7. When it dies, my words may die with it. But perhaps that is fitting. We of the Underhive are already the forgotten ones, the humans deemed expendable by an Imperium that demands everything and returns nothing. This is the true face of the Imperium of man, not the golden glory depicted in ecclesiarchy murals, but the rusted reality of those crushed beneath its weight. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Arden Voss, and I once believed in the Emperor's light. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The taste of recycled air burns my lungs as I crouch in the rusted maintenance shaft, watching them pass below, enforcers, their shock mauls crackling with blue energy, hunting me like vermin. They call this place Hive Tarsonis. But to those of us born beneath the manufactorum levels, it has always been the Underhive, our prison, our hell, our home. The metallic tang of blood oil mingles with the stench of human waste as I press my scarred back against corroded pipes that leak chemicals no Imperial citizen should touch. My skin bears the marks of 16 cycles in this darkness, crude gang tattoos, acid burns, and the branded serial number that marks me as property of House Delac. The hissing of steam vents and distant screams forms a constant dirge that has been the soundtrack to my existence since birth. This is what it means to be forgotten by the God Emperor, to live in the shadows cast by his mighty Imperium. I remember the day I first saw sunlight. Real sunlight, not the sickly glow of biolum fungi or flickering lumens. I was 12 cycles old, having climbed through maintenance ducts for 3 days to reach an abandoned ventilation shaft. The pain as my dilated pupils contracted was excruciating. But in that moment of blinding agony, I glimpsed the spires of the upper hive, gleaming adamantine and gold, reaching toward a sky I had only heard about in the delirious ramblings of the chem-addicted. That day, I learned the cruelest truth of the Imperium, that some souls are born into light, while others are condemned to darkness by the mere circumstance of their birth. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Ezekiel Thorne, and I once believed in the Emperor's light, reaching even the deepest shadows. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The taste of recycled moisture on cracked lips, the constant drone of distant machinery that never stops, not even in your dreams. These are the mercies of the Underhive. The constant struggle merely to exist beneath kilometers of rockcrete and plasteel, forgotten by those who dwell above in their spires of privilege and ignorance. I remember the day I first saw real sunlight. Not the sickly glow of bioluminescent fungi that cling to the dripping walls, nor the flickering lumens that fail more often than they work. Actual sunlight. I was 32 years old, and had never before felt its warmth on my skin. The arbitrators had dragged me upwards through level after level, my eyes burning from each progressively brighter environment. When they finally pushed me through that hatch onto the mid-hive thoroughfare, I collapsed, blinded and terrified by the vastness above me. They laughed as I vomited from vertigo, my body unable to process the concept of a ceiling too high to see. The Underhive breeds its own kind of human, warped not by mutation, but by circumstance. We are the forgotten ones, the discarded masses that keep the foundations from crumbling beneath the weight of imperial ambition. The manufactorum waste flows down. The toxic byproducts of industry seep into our water. And the criminals too insignificant for official punishment are simply pushed downwards until they reach us. And yet, the Imperium demands its tithe, even from us. Bodies for the guard, occasional purges when our numbers grow too great. And always, always the reminder that the Emperor watches even those who dwell in perpetual darkness. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Armin Voss, and I once believed in the Emperor's light reaching every corner of his domain. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The taste of recycled air burns my lungs, thick with the stench of chemical runoff and human desperation. It has been 17 years since I fell from the upper spires of Hive Tarsus on Scintilla, cast down for a crime I did not commit, speaking against a noble house whose name I dare not utter even now. The Underhives, the forgotten realm beneath the feet of the privileged, a place where Imperial citizens live and die without ever seeing natural light, where gangs rule with more authority than distant Arbites, and where the Imperium's promises are as hollow as the vast chambers carved beneath the weight of kilometers-high hive spires. I write this account on scraps of parchment stolen from a dead scrivener, hoping it might someday reach the upper levels, though I know better than to truly hope for anything in this lightless abyss. The Underhives are not merely poor districts or slums. They are a different reality entirely, one the administratum pretends does not exist, while simultaneously depending on the countless bodies it produces for the imperial war machine. I have seen children born, live, and die without ever knowing there is a sky above the rockcrete ceiling. I have watched as the desperation of the Underhive transforms ordinary imperial citizens into something barely recognizable as human. This is the truth the Imperium conceals. Millions upon millions of souls exist solely to suffer and die beneath the notice of those they sustain. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Tiberius Folk, and I once believed in the Emperor's light. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The Underhive claimed me long before I understood what it truly was. A deliberate wound in the Imperium's side, left to fester for millennia. The taste of recycled air, thick with promethium and human waste, still haunts me even now. That distinct flavor of desperation that no filtration mask can truly eliminate. I remember the first time I descended below the manufactorum levels of Hive Tarsus on Scintilla. The transition was jarring, from the ordered, if oppressive, halls of production to the lawless depths where Imperial authority existed only as distant echoes. The lighting systems flickered and failed, casting everything in sickly yellow-green from the bioluminescent fungi that clung to the moisture-slick walls. My boots stuck to the floor with each step, the residue of countless chemical spills and bodily fluids accumulated over centuries without proper maintenance. The Adeptus Arbite sergeant who guided me down laughed at my reaction. "First time in the depths, Administratum boy?" he asked, his voice distorted through his rebreather. This is where the Imperium stops pretending. He was right. What I found there, what I documented in reports that would never see the light of the upper spires, changed me forever. The Underhive wasn't some unfortunate development or oversight. It was by design, a pressure valve for the Imperium's cruelest necessities. And I was about to become part of its machinery.